Welcome to another episode of the EmpowerMAN podcast. Get those eye crusties out of your eyes, splash a little water on your face, and wake up with Mike and Greg. You know, this could be someone's dream, waking up with the two of us in the same location, even if it's virtual. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people dreamt of waking up to the both of us in the
It's a
morning.
nightmare.
But I digress because we're older now and I can't keep track of my nose and ear hairs. So ain't no one going to want to wake up with a guy with nose and ear hairs. Look like a chia pet sometimes. For people our age will understand that reference. But tonight, this morning, this beautiful day, I'm joined by a man who really needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. He's bearded, he's hatted. He had glasses on earlier, folks. He's not just eye candy. He is a sapiosexual, meaning his shoulders and his brain combined make him the most attractive man in the world. He's my friend. He's your friend. He's the parent, the patriot, the champion of the Second Amendment. My boy, Greggy T. Greg A. Tador numero uno. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Good morning, sir. It's a new one for us. There it is. The 58th cup of coffee.
Only two. The IV bag is ready to roll in a few minutes. I'm just getting that prepped. I wish I had a home nurse. I'll probably need one at some point. But, Greggy T, I want to start off by a little bit of a somber note there. I purposely am not watching the news anymore, but I did buy a shirt for this fallen officer in New York. I guess he was only 22 years old or something like that. I guess he got shot at the traffic. I guess he was at a traffic stop or something like that, and he just got shot. I don't know the background of it, but again, this is why we love our policemen and women, our first responders, our EMTs. You guys selflessly put your lives on the line so that Greg and I can do this podcast, so that people can take their children to Little League events and Easter egg hunts and to keep our community safe and sound. Guys, gals, we love you very much.
Yeah, for sure. And shout out to all the military personnel out there here and at home. As always, we thank you guys as well. And girls, be safe out there. Everything's a little hairy right now. And speaking of that officer, Barstool Sports did something pretty cool. I think they made a bunch of T-shirts, and all the proceeds went to the family. And then Dave Portnoy matched it. So last I heard, it was like a little over $2 million they raised for the family, which it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Can't hate on that.
Actually,
there you go.
There it is. A friend of mine sent it to me.
There you go.
Like I said, I'm not boycotting the news. I already know what's going on, so I don't need to, keep poisoning my mind with the same old redundant, recyclable stuff over and over and over and over and over again. But speaking of over, Greg, this morning, this afternoon, this evening's topic is: how do you know when it's over? How do you know when it's over?
It goes dark.
It goes real dark. In fact, It's still dark out right now. I've had a hard time coming to grips with certain things in regards to when how do you know it's over? It's hard because you think about things that you used to do that you can't do anymore. When you talk about your athletics, let's talk about athletics, for example.
Yeah.
You being a swimmer, psychologically, you get in the pool. Maybe you feel like you could do, I don't know, a 400-meter breaststroke per time. If I'm speaking out of context, please let me know. You like that one?
Very good.
I did my research. And like, when you do your thing, right? Do you ever feel like, man, like I can't swim like I used to, or I can't do this
all the time, all the time?
But it's kind of a mind game, right?
It is. I mean, you and I heard this growing up. A lot of people, I feel this way. Like, I still mentally feel young. I feel like I should be able to do certain things, like you said, and I just can't physically do them. Mentally, I can do them, but my body can't do it. And my mom laughs at me because she's like, getting old sucks. And now I get why people always used to tell us that, and why when we were younger, your joints are good, you're springy, nothing hurts. And man, it's a polar opposite now. Physically, I feel like I'm 80. Mentally, I'm still probably 15, but it's tough, man. It's a hard pill to swallow. For
Yeah,
me, it is.
no, yeah. Oh, mentally, I'm still 20 something, and especially
Yeah.
if I'm in the right company, then I really feel like I'm in my 20s. And,
Mhm.
I find that, with my history of concussions, like, I was reading an article about Ronda Rousey about how she hit her concussions. And like Ronda Rousey's a great fighter. Wrestling
How many did
wise,
she have?
she doesn't know,
Wow.
you know,
Yeah.
but she got slapped in the face and she got concussed. I took a punch in the face and I got
Mhm.
concussed, but it took me 6 weeks to recover. And I felt like my mouth was on the other side of my face. Like I felt it was
I
something
remember
I
you
never,
telling me that. I remember that.
it was something I never felt before. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting here, contemplating, like, as much as I love professional wrestling, like now I'm kind of like, well, gee, like, am I going to get another one? And that's like in your head. And it's like, well, maybe I can't do the things I used to do, but I feel like in my mind, I can still do those things. It's just, I know that one more blow, I don't really want to go through that again. So there's a lot of risks reward that goes on.
Mhm.
And even though, like, the what happened to me was, it was like, for those of that have gotten punched in the face before, like, I got punched in the face. I mean, it didn't knock me out, but it was enough to get me, if you get hit in the right spot, right now force, it's, and to that, the person that did to me, I mean, he probably didn't know his own strength and didn't even know, like, something like that could happen. And
Mhm.
it's like, I just don't know. I mean, you take a risk of doing physical activity. There's a risk you can go swimming. There's a risk you do wrestling. There's a risk you go hiking,
Yeah.
climbing, weightlifting. So how do you know, like, when it's over? Like, how do you know when it's like, all right, these days are behind me in the athletic world? Let's start with
Mm.
athletics, for example.
I mean, I'm a bigger guy, but when I was younger, for fun, I used to play a lot of basketball with friends, and I used to be able to dunk, and it was awesome. I'd probably tear everything trying to just grab the rim now, because I've done it before, and it just my body, it's just not worth. It's not worth getting hurt over that. So I think that's when I know, okay, I could shoot around, play basketball a little bit for fun, but none of those like explosive movements. It's just not worth it. And we're not professional athletes. We don't have the means to go into surgery that day, have all the recovery staff and all of that. That's we don't have that ability. So I'm not where this is real world for most people. So I just think when the risk outweighs the reward, you really have to have that hard conversation with yourself to maybe just do it for fun and chill a little bit, not go full blown into it.
Yeah, I think when you're younger, you throw caution to the wind because you don't
Hmm.
care.
Of
You're like,
course.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Now that you're older, it's like, well, there's a lot of guys my age that 20 years ago we all started doing stuff, and slowly, little by little, they want, because wrestling now has exploded again. It's hitting
Yeah.
another boom.
Yeah.
People have places to work, people have places to do things, and if you just have a good time doing it, and you can still do it, but then it's also like, well, I also have a business. I also have a this. I have that. So it's when you're younger, it's like, oh man, if I got a 10 bar, in any type of entertainment business, it's like you have a side job. Like most people, we were living in New York, how many actors and actresses and aspiring dancers did we run into that were bartending or waitressing or waitering at, like,
Yep.
Tao or Nobu to supplement their stuff? Now it's like, well, I'm, middle aged, right? So it's like, I think when you sit and contemplate, that's where like, okay, maybe the passion's still there,
Yeah.
but it's like you're moving, your mind is moving in a different direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's moving in a different direction and it's moving at a different speed. There's reality speed and then there's mental speed. So for swimming, for practice, we would do 2 practices a day before school, early, and then after school, thousands, tens of thousands of yards a day. I can barely do 1,000 now, but it's a good thing because I don't need to do all that yardage. But When I got back into swimming, I swim a couple days a week. I'm still in that place that I went all my whole life. And it slaps you real quick because you do, 6 laps and you're gassed and you're like, oh my God, this is just warm up. It just hits you like, wow, okay. And then I just use it for different benefits now. I use it more for the cardio and the stretching and breath control, keep my lungs a certain way. I used to be able to swim 4 laps without breathing, like underwater. Like I was really good at that. I'd like to get that back again, which I can do. But at least I'll have fun doing it now. It's not so much like the pressure or you have to do this or you have to do all these yards in the workout. It's now I just plan accordingly. I'm over it and I use it for what it's good for me now. It's good for cardio and stuff now. I'll just use it for that.
Cardio.
Yeah, I know.
Man,
Hey, I'm down
older,
10, man. I'm down a solid 10 and I'm holding it. So it's good.
That's good.
Another 50 to go.
That's good. That's good, man. You're getting there.
Yeah.
You're getting there.
Yeah.
When we talk about, knowing when it's over, I think we can apply that to our jobs as well.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't know what it was for you. When I quit my corporate job, I had nothing left to give. I can remember it clear as day. I just had nothing left in the tank. I gave a lot of my life and a lot of my health and a lot of my being to one because I believed in it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with giving everything to what you believe in. But
and we were also raised that way. You do a good job at what you do.
And we were also raised to be loyal.
Yeah.
When we were growing up, it was a badge of honor to have work at one company for 35 years or like when we were growing up, we had oh, I got the gold watch from, so and so, or it was a thing. My family grew up in New York, about an hour north of you, was IBM. IBM was huge. We had 2 plants there, and it was in my growing up era, it was you go to high school, maybe you go to community college, and you go to IBM. Everyone went to IBM to work because the benefits, the pension, it was all the necessities. And we've learned through our lifetime that tomorrow's not promised.
Nope.
So therein lies the big word now, quagmire. I love that word, quagmire. I have it tattooed on my wrist. Quagmire. In regards to, I can keep living my dreams because I'm not promised tomorrow. So if I get hurt, whatever. Or, we could take the cautious route. We always talk about being slow and steady. Slow and steady wins the race. So it's you can be slow and steady in your professional life, your personal life, your dreams, but tomorrow's not promised. So how did you know, Greg, when it was over with your job and you were ready to put it behind you? When did you hit that point?
Well, a couple examples. One is I worked for that company that you mentioned in a different capacity, and I loved it. I was good at it. I ran different crews throughout Manhattan at night, which was really awesome in itself. That's another fun topic to talk about, to see Manhattan at night when everyone's sleeping, because it really is a city that never sleeps. There's a whole different pattern of life at night. But anyway, I loved what I did, but it became a point where the one person, one boss, one executive can derail a whole entire job or purpose that you have. Like you're cruising along, you love it, everyone likes your work, but one person oversteps or starts to abuse you in certain ways and take advantage of you and really just stifle you, but at the same time just doesn't respect you, and it starts to deteriorate. You become disgruntled mentally, and that gap, that distance starts to happen now, where you start to not give a fuck, and that's bad, because that's like a cancer, and it'll grow and spread really quick. There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than a disgruntled employee, because it's almost impossible to turn that switch around or turn it off, because once it's there, it usually only grows. And I knew it was over when I started questioning, is this even worth it? And what am I sacrificing for this? And the the taking advantage of got to an all-time high. When I decided to part ways, I remember I spoke to my parents about it, and I'm a grown man, and I talk to them all the time, and they were like, "What are you doing?" Like, they encouraged me because they were like, "You need to get out of there because it's just not healthy for you at this point." And I remember when I left, man, it felt like a 100-pound weight was just lifted off my back. That's when I knew it was the right decision for me at that time. And I'll be honest, if I love that job, I'd probably still be there because I was good at it. But like I said, one person in that chain can really screw things up. So
So how do you delineate between questioning yourself and possible voices in your head telling you, there's something that my friend Patrick calls the evil trickster, where your mind plays tricks on you in regard to saying like, "Is this the right place for me?" Or is it like your mind telling you, "Hey, I'm out of my comfort zone here. Let me just embrace this different role or this different type of
yeah,
leadership or this different type of thing." So how do you delineate between your mind playing tricks on you and actually really questioning yourself, saying, "Hey, is this the right fit for me?" Is there a delineation? I'm sure it's a fine line, but how would you differentiate between the two?
I think time helps that. I think being aware of what you just said, if you have those internal dialogues, which I think is okay to have, if they start arising, maybe face them and say, "Hey, let me think about this. Let me go on my day and my weeks. Let me think about this. Now I'm aware. Obviously they're in my head for a reason. Is it bullshit or is it just me, not, just questioning, is this the right job for me, or is this the right path I'm on, or is this the right company for me?" And now that you're aware, just being aware is I think huge. But now that you're aware, okay, let me be more cognizant of it, and let me start really thinking about my day to day within those parameters. And time tells all, in my opinion. And I think you'll reach that point when you start being aware of it every day. And I think the truth always comes out, so you'll know one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people nowadays just will complain about something, but yet there's no action behind it. Where it's not complain, but it'll be like, "All right, well, my situation sucks," and it's over and over. It's like a broken record. But I think people lack the execution and the planning these days, especially when you're going to make a move from one to the next. A friend of mine who I had a conversation with last week about vibration levels, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, obviously Tony Robbins and these guys, they make a
Hmm.
killing, doing what they do, which is wonderful. I think it's great.
Hmm.
There's definitely value in that stuff. But I also think too, like, where a lot of people are like, "Well, you have to vibrate at this frequency or you have to be around this type of individual." Yes, I do agree, but you have to put the work behind it. If you
Yeah.
want to change your situation,
Hmm.
like, not many people have the luxury of, not being able to work and can focus on this. Most people, like you and I, that supplement our income, like we talked about earlier, most of the entertainers that were trying to break into the business had a job bartending, waitressing, waitering to supplement your income. You still have to live. So
Yeah.
I guess my next question to you is how can people become better at executing on leaving something behind and knowing it's over? It's like staying in, and we'll get to this in a second. It's like, how many people have we known complain to us about their partners? And it's a
Yeah.
week, it's a month, it's 6 months, it's a year, it's 3 years. It's the same stuff,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So why do you think people are lackadaisical in their planning and execution in that regard?
I think there's a couple different answers to this one question. Number one is fear. People do fear the unknown. People like to be comfortable. People have a job and they get a paycheck, which is great. And that's that safety net. But that fear on the other side of that door, really, some people do not have the natural ability to just kick the door in or just go through and see or take the leap of faith. That's why they call it that. A lot of people just can't do it. And it's unfortunate because I bet a very high percentage of them will be so happy and glad that they did it and wish they did it earlier, which is a great thing. But I think fear number one, and we're also conditioned for that fear as well, I think, all throughout, growing up in society and all that, you know, um, they they fear what they don't know, but they know they want something different. When that becomes so big, you just got to go for it. I always used to tell you this because my dad taught me this. What's the worst that could happen? You'll get another. Okay. You might not be able to go back to the job you left, but you can get another job and you can pivot and do something else. You never know. You take the leap of faith, it might not work out. Okay. But at least you did it. And that voice now, you acted on it. And even though it didn't work out, I think it's a huge growth within you, even though you probably don't realize it, because that takes a lot of courage to do that. And it'll be easier the next time and the next time and the next time. And eventually you'll get to somewhere in life where you're supposed to be. And I think that's a great thing to do, is to eventually, if you want to go through that door, just go through it. But it's hard. People don't have the support system. They don't have friends. A lot of people, oh, you have a good job. Like, are you sure you want to do that? We hear it all the time. You want to be self-employed. You want to have your own business. Oh my God. Like, don't you want a paycheck every week? Like, listen, there's pros and cons to everything. You got to weigh it out, but there's tangible pros and cons that you can write on a list, but then you can't put your feelings or your thoughts on out there. Like, people don't, you have to live with yourself at some point. So I just think the fear is the number one thing that keeps people from doing it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you used to tell me all the time that, even in the mid to late 2000s when I was ready to move out of New York, I think in
Yeah.
2009. I was ready to
Hmm.
like different things. And I remember, you say, what's the worst that can happen? And I was afraid because I'm like, well, I have this lifestyle. I have
Yeah.
a place in Midtown. I'm doing all this stuff. Like you get caught up in things. So it's
Hmm.
easy to get caught up in your own web
Yeah.
of life in that sense. And now that I have experience under my belt and I've moved different places, now it's easy. Like,
Aren't you
if I
glad you did it?
I am. I'm very glad. I mean, my life in Florida is great. I mean, but you're working your rear end off, but you're working it for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I'm lucky to live in Florida because it's ran like a normal place where the
Yeah.
economy is booming. People are moving down here in drones.
Pro
Like,
business.
pro business. It is, everything is, it's like everybody from the Northeast is down here, which not a bad thing because it keeps people. But let's hope in a couple of years people don't change their views on the world and the views on Florida. But to your
Yeah.
point, it's experience. It's the fear that held you back, and once you took that leap of faith,
Yeah.
it's like leaving your job. It's scary because you're going from an unstable position or
Yeah.
stable position, excuse me, to now the unknown.
The
What am I going to
unknown.
do? But
Hmm.
I also feel there's a difference between a risk and a calculated risk. So if you're like, for me, like, I knew I was going to leave and I had spreadsheets and I put stuff down on paper. This is what I needed. This, and
Hmm.
this. So I knew, okay, if I leave, I'll make this much. I'll have a solid base. And I think for anyone that wants to leave, like if you want to leave like athletics, then you need to have a backup plan. You need to say, all right, well, I'm going to do this for 6 more months.
Hmm.
If, let's just say, MMA or wrestling or boxing or whatever is your profession, you got to have like, hey, I'm going to leave in 6 months, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to college. I'm going to do this. What are my passions? I'm going to do that. So you have to really take inventory, take stock of your stuff, and really get it out of your head onto paper. Put together a plan, especially you and I running our own businesses. I'm always have plans and I always have stuff written down. Check, 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 check.
Yep.
You lack in execution because you lack in planning. right?
Most people. Most people.
Most people, right? That's what people do.
Yep.
And I want to take this now into probably something that's very controversial, or that's going to probably get us a lot of good stuff, is relationships.
Yeah.
In your lifetime, Greg, in your experiences.
My many lives.
Right. Let's start with life number one. How did you know it was over and was ready to move on?
Just wasn't feeling anymore with them. Just wasn't you just knew it wasn't good anymore. That feeling wasn't there where you guys are connected or bonded or whatever word people want to use. It just fizzled out, which is fine. It happens. But a lot of people fight it, same way they fight staying in the job that they're not happy in, and they try to barrel through it, and usually it's just not going to work, in my opinion.
See, what I do is I give people enough rope in the beginning. They don't really know it. So here's the rope.
Yeah.
I'll give you plenty enough room to hang yourself. And I know
Yeah.
it really sounds harsh. So it's
No,
up to you
not at all.
if you want to kick the chair. And this is when I first meet people too. Like
Mhm.
obviously, I'm the king of the short-term relationships. If you here's the rope.
Mhm.
If you want to hang yourself, go for it.
Yeah.
You and I are different in our trust levels. I started at 100 and worked my way down. And once that gets below 30, you're
Yeah.
done. To
Yeah.
me, you got hypothermia. You lost your fingers and your toes. You're useless.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I know it sounds harsh, but that's just how I've always operated. And I think, for people that we know that stay in these situations where
Mhm.
they have the optics, right? You have to use that term. They have the
Mhm.
optics.
They have the show.
They have the show, and when you go behind the curtain, it's a whole different ballgame.
Shitty.
So, Greggy T, like, why do you think these people? I'm not going to specify gender. Why do you think these people stay in these spots? Like, why can't they just hey, you know what? This is over. I need to move on for myself.
Listen, there's a bunch of different reasons. Fear, number one. Fear of the unknown. Some people can't be by themselves. I mean, you and I have friends that go from relationship to relationship. They never have time to be alone, and which I think is good, and time to themselves and date or do whatever they have to do. So fear, and then also their content, the comfort of just having someone. Insert anybody, but I'm with this person and they're used to seeing them or just the routine. And the thought of that routine not being there upsets them. So I used to ask a lot of our friends, do you miss that person or you just miss the idea of that person? And usually all the time they'll when they really think about it, they're like, oh, I just miss the idea of that person. I'm like, okay, well then go find somebody else that fits that better. And I don't think anything's harsh that you said. I start at zero trust and you earn it. I'm a big fan of patterns, and I've learned that as I got older. For girls, girls are patterns, and when patterns, there's a natural progression when you're talking to somebody, and when you're starting to get involved with somebody, they have patterns. Once that pattern breaks, or like it's not normal, it's kind of a red flag, or it's kind of like a moment like, wait a second, what's up? So when patterns also get disrupted, I think it's time to figure out why that is and see if it's over or not. If you're having that voice in your head, it's good to review patterns.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I think guys have patterns as well.
Of course.
I even in even in friendships, like you
Hmm.
can sense when someone's you can sense. It's like, I think you see a lot of things on Instagram, um getting rid of toxic friends or getting rid of which I agree. I think
Yeah.
I think you should. I think you should. I think you should eliminate toxicity in your life. I'm all for that. You know, there are friends that I hung out with that I just slowly disappeared. Like I'm the type of dude that just disappears. When I'm and it, you know, in a trying to articulate this the right way. Not in a bad way. It's just like I'm not gonna give conjecture to something where like I'm not going to fight with somebody, I'm not going to argue with somebody. If you label me this, if you
Mhm.
label me that, I should probably defend myself, but I don't. If you think that I'm this person, then you know what? I delete you. I block your number. I social media.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure people are listening to this right now that have known me. They know exactly what I'm talking about. And the only way you're going to hear about me is through a second or third party. That's
Mhm.
just me. It's probably a bad way of doing things, and
I don't think so.
I should probably get better at having conversations. But when it comes to friendships, I think eliminating some of that toxicity. I've always just kept my distance, and I would slowly push away, push away, push away to the point where I disappear.
Mm.
Now, is that necessarily a good thing? Should you have a conversation with someone? I think when you're eliminating toxicity, it's probably best to just disappear. I mean, I don't know about you.
I don't think anything's wrong with what you said. You can try to have a conversation, but usually those people are toxic for a reason and they're not so in tuned with reality. They're in their own world. You'll never convince an irrational person. You always tell me to be rational. So it's in my mind, it's almost a worthless conversation, a waste of your time because it's not going to land the way you want to. It'll be probably an argument. So
Right.
yeah, I don't have time for that either. So
Yeah. And I think it's really important to keep in mind the difference between shame and that type of behavior. I mean, I think like when someone labels you, like when someone labels me something, I feel shame. I feel sadness. I feel like, wow, like this person thinks I'm an a hole, or this one thinks
hmm
let's just say, you know, other names I've been called in the past, and it's like, well, like when you know your heart and God knows your heart, and
yeah.
while your intent may be good and the execution may be flawed, it
hmm
still hurts when someone labels you that. So get when I get that way, when someone not attacks my character, but someone like just, hey, Mike's a jerk, Mike's this, Mike's that,
hmm
I tend to cower, I feel shame, and then I go crawl in a closet or I disappear. Instead of saying maybe having a conversation like, hey, like let's sit down and talk this out, and I can explain to you where I'm coming from. But like you said, and we've talked about, you can't really be rational with
No,
irrational people.
no.
So you think that's a not a bad way of handling a situation like that, where you just kind of slowly just give yourself space and distance.
Not necessarily. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, I've done it, and I'll just step back. I'll take it if things are going a certain way, like I said, patterns or whatever, and you're getting a weird feeling. You know, take an overview of the situation, and if you're not liking what you're seeing, or if you tried to have that conversation didn't go well, okay, I'm gonna just ease up a little bit. Then I'm just gonna take a step back, and I'm still cool, but I'm not. That's my. I'm either out like you, or I'm taking a huge step back and I'm coasting. And usually they don't like that. And you end up, piecing out anyway, which is fine.
Yeah. I also think it's important to have conversations with your friends,
Yeah.
especially if it's like,
hmm
if it's like a group of people you're hanging out with that may not match up with your values, you probably want to just step back. I mean, I've been
Yeah.
in company of people that I didn't really associate with, but we were both angry, or we both like to drink, we both like this,
hmm
so it's like when you look at your core group of friends, I think if stuff does arise, it's important to have conversations, because
Yeah.
life's too short, man. It's like,
Yeah.
you can't throw away stuff over something that's like everybody, even you and we're gonna have disagreements. Everybody doesn't always agree all the time.
Of
Even
course.
though you and we've had maybe a few disagreements in 25 years.
hmm Not
So we're a
many.
little different. We're a
Not
little
many.
different.
Only a few.
only a few, right? But you and I are a little bit different. I
Yeah.
think like for most people, like you've talked about this with friendships over politics, long friendships over political beliefs.
Mhm.
Is I mean, is it worth it to lose a 25-year friendship over I like apples and you like oranges?
I'll take it further. There's parental relationships. You're talking 40, 50 years over one silly thing. Man, that's shameful. Shameful. Like people our parents' age, first of all, your generation should know better. To be honest with you, I'm going to put that on you. And that's just this whole country was made to. It's all good to disagree. It's all good at the end of the day. It's fine. It's fine. Why do you think there's different flavors of ice cream, but there's still ice cream? It's cool. I don't like what you like. You don't like what I like, but we like hanging out. So what's the problem? It's that simple in my brain. I don't really care. As if you're cool with me, if you're good to me, I don't care about that stuff. But it's easier to say that when you're older, when you can look back and stuff. But I don't know, man.
Is
It's never easy, but I think I think talking things out is important. Communication is important when you're dating somebody or when you're getting to know somebody.
sure.
But, it's that trust factor, which is a whole different conversation. I don't trust, and you putting a lot of trust in somebody that you think maybe you're having a real heart to heart, like you're letting them in and you're putting all the cards out on the table. Here's my deck. And you're trusting that that person's doing the same when they put like five cards out. That's hard. And I mean, but that's the risk. Like that's what are
Yeah.
your other options? You gotta go for it. And when you're let down, it sucks. And it's what you do with that being let down. You can either talk about it and see why, and maybe you guys can connect on a different level and they'll put some more cards down, or you hit the eject button and you're out because no one has time for that.
Yeah.
It
And
should be equal, man. It should be equal.
I think that goes along with expectations. Like when I meet somebody, we're
I
40
I
some
have
years old.
horrible expectations given our life, so
Yeah.
it's
I
hard.
think I think if you meet somebody in your circle of interests, whether it's someone, let's just say at CrossFit, or someone at
Mhm,
church, or someone in wrestling, or someone in training, those are my pretty much my four worlds, right?
mhm,
You call them ecosystems, right?
yep,
And if I meet someone with in let's say a church, right? My expectation is like, okay, they're gonna have enough of a moral compass to say, hey, this isn't the right fit for me. I don't see a future for us, or I don't see, you know, I don't see this going anywhere. I've had that conversation where, I've met people because that's important to me as
mhm,
I advance through life to have that as a common denominator and values. I've been where I've had conversations with people where I didn't see it working out, but we remained friendly
yeah,
because I was upfront. And those are hard conversations to have. But, when I meet someone in one of those four chambers and they don't meet me on that level, I get let down. I get disappointed. Therefore, the rope is there if you want to hang yourself with me, and that's fine. And once it's done, it's
yeah.
done. Now, in the past,
Mm.
egotistically, I would go back to prove a point
See,
because
I'm
I
the
was
opposite, yeah.
I was a four-letter word because I was
Mm.
like, yeah, now what? And then I would move on. And that's kind of a D bag move in my opinion.
No, it's just how you handled it, that's all.
Yeah, yeah. I handled it with my ego
I
because I
was the
wanted to prove a
opposite,
point.
like, I was like, "That's it, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done." But yeah,
yeah,
listen, in your 4 ecosystems, so what I'm hearing is those carry more weight to you, obviously, because those are
sure.
your circles, so expectations are probably a little higher, am I right?
Yep,
Than
100%,
like a normal person you meet out, like if you're
100%.
out to dinner or something like that.
Yeah, completely different. Meet a girl at a bar, it's different.
Yeah, yeah, but unfortunately in my brain, because of history and all that stuff, I think they're both the same in my mind when it comes to expectations. My expectations are low, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is based on experiences and stuff. So, and you know what? if I'm pleasantly surprised, cool. Then I'm happy. But I try not to expect anymore because of, everything that's happened and history and all of that. So,
Right. Well, precedents in your life are going to kind of
of course.
they're going to shape your focus. So I
Yeah,
agree
and
with
everyone's
that.
like, "Oh, well, because some people will come at me like, "Well, what happens if they do it to you?" I don't care. You can look at it the same way with me too. That's fine. If you don't have expectations of me, I'm confident in my ability to blow your expectations out of the water with my my stuff. So I'm fine with that. It's not a one-way street with me, but it's a rough road, in my opinion. I don't trust, and I don't come out of the gate with like rainbows and kittens and sunshine and ice cream. I come out like ready to go, expecting the worst, and if it doesn't happen, cool. Now that's probably wrong, but that's just how I am. So,
That's what makes the world go around. Different perspectives.
but that's why we always say like I'm glad we lived the lives we lived, but sometimes ignorance is bliss. They say.
That is
We have
true.
some friends that just live and die in the same town, and that's cool. That's not me. I know that's not you. And they live a different life, or they've lived a different life. Not hating on it, because a part of me is like, wow, simple is probably the wrong word. It's the only thing that comes to mind. But like, simple works, simple's easy, and you aren't let down as much because you're not exposed to all the darkness that's out there, because there's a lot of dark shit out there. We've seen it. So
And if any of our listeners want to find out more about Greg's stuff,
my
go to
darkness.
foreverprogress.com
Yeah.
and you can get
Mhm.
all of Greg's stuff
We'll talk about this more.
at that level. Yes, sir. And also, I'm all about kittens. You and I are all about kittens.
Mm.
Like, you're going to know about my cat straight up.
Yep.
Like, this girl comes first. You can have seats 2 through 30, but this seat is reserved for my kitten, my
Yep.
cat, who's laying right next to me as we speak.
Yeah, man.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll talk about darkness in another episode because people question that a lot. But I don't know. I'll just say it's a tough. I'm glad we saw and we're exposed to everything because that's what's literally out there. But a part of me kind of wishes never really saw it. But then again, it's a tough battle for me internally. I seesaw back and forth, obviously.
Yeah. And I think that's not a bad thing. Yeah, it's not a bad thing at all because that's what makes people different. If we all thought the
It's
same, it'd be a different layout.
it's not a
But
bad. It could be a bad thing because you the expectations are so low given,
right.
and you meet somebody, you're already, that judgment that we talked about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're already fighting an uphill battle, which can anybody even climb that hill? It's tough, man. It's tough.
But it's a choice. If that person wants to fight that battle, it's that person's choice.
It is. However, I put myself in that role. I don't want a complete straight vertical uphill climb right out of the gate because that person's been exposed or seen so much that I don't want to do that. I'll do a little of it. But when the hill is like this as opposed to this, you got to scale that. That's tough, and I battle with that too. But it's
Yeah,
there
of
for a reason.
course it is.
But it's also not right to have somebody. We always say this. You have to give the next person a chance, like clean slate. They didn't wrong you yet, or they didn't wrong you at all. So why are they being treated or have to go through the gauntlet, for lack of a better term, because of your past shit? It's a tough battle to fight.
It is. I agree with you because we've all been there. We tried to fix people. We tried to be like, oh, let me
Fight it all the time.
if I
All the
show
time.
this girl the way, like, hey, I'm not like all the rest. But it also now at this point in my life, do I want to fight that battle? Do I want to say, well, you know what? This
Yeah.
person has a lot going on. I'm going to give that person space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give that person space. And if it comes around, great. If not, and I think, as we wrap this up, two things. One, you need to understand the other person. So that's where emotional intelligence comes into play. If I've been in situations where I've dated people straight out of a divorce, And that has gone a complete, instead of me understanding like, hey, this person was in a marriage, they've, they did their thing and now they've got freedom. Do I want to be that guy that catapults them to their next relationship? Because I've done that too.
Mm-hmm.
I've been the fluffer. So, do I want to put myself in a situation? So experience in time really can give people a perspective saying, hey, you know what? Like, this girl's great, but she has a lot going on. She's got this, she's got that. She's not ready for what I have to offer. I'm going to give her
Mm-hmm.
space. I'll check up on her because I want to know I'm still interested. Hey, if you need anything, I'm here. But again, if that person chooses, and I've had girlfriends that stuck through guys that flat out said, hey, I'm not emotionally available. But most people, like myself, who made this mistake, have been attached to people that are emotionally unavailable due to events that happened to me younger. So it's breaking those patterns and those chains of like, why am I going to be with someone who's emotionally unavailable? They put it out there, said, hey, listen, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
But if you choose to climb that vertical steep, that's on you.
Yeah.
That's not understanding the other person. Like, if I'm going through something and I don't get space or no one's listening to what I need, then I'm going to run away. And then they're going to feel like, well, why did he do this for? Well, I asked you for this and I didn't get that. So I think we need to listen to people. And I think we need to understand that what that person's fully going through. And then from there, you can decide, hey, do I want to be in this situation? Do I want to continue to fight this? Or do I want to say, hey, I'm give that person space?
And you can only do that when you know your self-worth, because that's all I heard is what you're worth, what you bring to the table, and you know what you want, and you know what you don't want, which is just as important. So
yeah. And like you as well, like you said that too. It's like, like I know I'll blow your expectations out of the water. It's just you got to get to that point. And you know what? And that's where like you get both sides of the spectrum with us. I'm at 100 and work to 0. You go from 0, work to 100. So whatever approach fits your personality type, we're just giving you 2 different ends of the perspective. But Greggy T, this being Easter weekend, you talked about darkness, and tomorrow being Easter. For those that do celebrate, happy Easter to everyone out there. And it's where the darkness, tomorrow is when the light overcame the darkness. And we can actually talk about this next week about the darkness, and we can get really into that. And I think that's a really great topic because we all go through it.
We'll need more than an hour for that one. A lot of darkness, sir.
And more than 2 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
So get your favorite Easter candy, Greggy T, because I got mine, my Cadbury mini eggs, and I just, my toilet is going to have a great time with me tomorrow. So any final thoughts there?
I'm an old school jelly bean guy right here.
Yes, you are.
But Cadbury, the Cadbury cream eggs, man, the original. Those are the best.
I got my mini eggs on my desk. So
love those. There's not enough cream in those. I like the cream.
Oh yeah. I like the mini.
That sweet tooth, man.
Shells.
Sweet tooth will get you.
In honor of you, tomorrow I'm gonna have a tricolor cookie. I'm going back to Mario's.
Listen, I'm gonna have to do one of Kyle's week fasts after tomorrow. So anyway, yeah, man, we'll talk about darkness because that's a big one.
It's huge. A lot of people are through it, and I think when you're isolated and stuff's going on, it's very easy to get caught up.
Confusing. It's confusing.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Well, Greggy T, another great episode in the books, my friend. As we rapidly approach our 1-year anniversary, we're gonna keep cooking and cooking and cooking. So, I'm going back to my coffee maker and making a 3rd cup.
Nice.
I try to go for 5 a day. That's my goal. If I'm not foaming at the mouth, then I'm not really caffeinated. So
there you go.
Sir, have yourself a wonderful Easter weekend. To all our people that celebrate Easter, have a great weekend.
Absolutely. Stay safe out there. All right.